I would love to give you some sage advice that leads everyone down this yellow brick road, but it's really user defined. The future of marketers is yours to define. And I don't know that we take advantage of that. I think we're waiting for someone to just tell us what the future is so we know which way to go. I think we're looking for a BuzzFeed version of the future of everything in an animated GIF with a cat somehow involved in it. I think the real answer is we have to really understand what's best for our market, our customer, our employees, whomever our audience is, and be inspired by that to let it define us, right? So, for example, we're here in Silicon Valley, and one of the most often and misused terms is growth hacking. And growth hacking to me is something that was very personally inspiring back in the mid '90s. It was this philosophy or this mantra that constraint forced creativity. I didn't start in marketing by classical training. I became a marketer because I was working with startups in the 90s, and we never had budget, we never had resources, yet we all had the same goals. We had to be successful, we had to make markets, we had to increase sales, we had to drive users, all of the things that a regular business has. So if we used the traditional tools that we had before us, advertising, public relations, that was early forms of digital marketing, I'm pretty sure that most of those companies that I worked with would have gone out of business or gone bankrupt right away. Even though that was during the time of the famous dot-bomb bust, many did go out of business. But what we tried to do was we tried to hack growth. We didn't call it growth hacking then. What we really looked at is how do we grow markets, grow mind share, get attention, drive conversations with what we have. And the thing that I remember and the thing that it still inspires me today is that we always had to find those answers. It wasn't in a book. We did get some very interesting insights from very smart people, but we always took those and used them our own way. And that is what the future of the marketer, I believe, looks like. It's something that has to move you as a human being. Where you are and where you want to be is separated by your actions and your words. Not my actions and not my words to define what you need to do. You take them and make them your own, based on who your customer is, who your employee is, where they are and where they need to be. The future of the marketer is something that requires greater thought. We have to maybe stop being a marketer for a moment. Stop publishing, stop finding new networks, stop trying to figure out the next big thing or the next creative campaign just for a moment so you could figure out how to not just break that cycle, but optimize it. One of the things that, just as an author and someone who has to travel all the time, I'm asked a lot, maybe over a glass of wine, where these more human conversations really take place, is, how do you create balance for yourself? You're always running around, and I think about this answer when I think about marketers. The answer is I do need balance. I don't get enough of it today, and I'm always in pursuit of it. But I do know that I can't be on all the time. I know that I can't compete for the moment in real time all the time. So I try to make my work more impactful. And that means that I have to think more about who I'm trying to reach and what they're trying to do and where their attention is and how their attention is focused, so that when I do create something or publish something or design something, it's so inspired and so thoughtful that when it's pushed to them, meaning that I don't just put it over here and hope they find it, but when it's pushed to them, it has a greater impact. But all of the things that I just glossed over in that process is the future of the marketer. You have to think differently. You have to have a different approach. You have to have a different type of outcome-based strategy, not just the strategy can't be we have to publish something. The strategy has to be I have to change your behavior, or I have to make you express something, or I have to design for what that outcome is. And then how you do that changes. Where that shows up and the results that it has, all of those things really define the elements that you need to either get for yourself or bring in as necessary. This is again why I think the on-demand economy is very interesting, because not all of us are going to master all of the techniques to be relevant in the future. I think we're just going to have to bring them in as we can, and that's the nice thing about it, because you'll be able to essentially Uber your talent much in the same way that DOZ allows you to bring in your creative professionals as you need to. But that really is what it's about. But don't use that as a shortcut, because someone has to be the strategist. Someone has to have the vision for what's possible. And I think as a marketer, that vision is what's going to set you apart from everybody else, because it's a matter of either actions or it's being an architect. And the architect is the one who's always going to have everyone else working against their vision instead of just being busy. I don't think we aim high enough today as marketers or just even as strategists. Goals should be outcomes, and outcomes should be experiences that people have and experiences that they share, not transactions. Transactions aren't a goal. They're nice to have. They're what keep us in business. So don't get me wrong. They're important, but it should be a byproduct of a great experience that you design, that you architect. And in order to do that, we really have to think about the skill sets that we have and the skill sets that we don't have, right? Because that not having them is not an excuse. Not being able to afford them is not an excuse. You still have to compete for attention, and attention is elusive, and it's changing over time. I do not believe that not having the answers is okay. Clearly, we have to find ways to do this, and we have to find ways to justify it beyond how we do today. I can't, or I won't, or I don't have. These are not okay, because the consumer is still moving, the consumer is still evolving, and we have to not just evolve along with it. We have to get ahead of it. That's the hard part, is that we react more than we lead, and so that expertise that we have to have really has to start with understanding attention and how it works and where it is, and sort of the culture of those networks, much like we have to focus on the local culture of our markets, in order to be able to inspire us to figure out what we don't have, and then bring in what you need as you need it. And this is one of the really interesting aspects of this on-demand economy, because it's essentially going to make everything on demand. Talent, resources, not just one-off in terms of freelancers, but I could see this bringing in complete teams who have this expertise in-house. But you have to know what it is that you're hiring for. You have to know what it is that you put in your brief. You have to know to what standard people work, or what's good enough for your customer, not what's good enough to their standards. Because everybody has to work to this greater vision, and I think the best expertise that any of us could have is a vision for what this should look like and feel like and taste like, and really activate the senses, and then use digital as a way to do so. You know, the future of marketing, the nice thing about it is that it's being written even as we spend this time together. But I also believe that the future of marketing, or the future of anything, is going to happen to you or because of you. And I like to think it's because of the latter. That this is a time for great innovation because of just the amount of inspiration we can open ourselves up to. And living here in Silicon Valley, it's very. I know this is going to be hard to believe, but I see a lot of iteration out there and not a lot of innovation. And that's just because it comes down to what are you really trying to do, and what's broken, and what's not possible, and really trying to invent new ways. And I say this because when you think about the future of marketing, the future of the marketer, there are so many roles out there that we can take. You could be inside of an agency, you could be inside of a brand, you could be a freelancer. Certainly all of these different aspects, not one is better than the other. They're all going to play out in their own way. But I think it really comes down to the individual level of what you really want to do and what makes you happy, but also what is it that you see challenging yourself to help someone else get what they don't get today. I think marketing largely operates still in a very, we can call it a 1.0 regime. Even though we're seeing some very clever things out there, we haven't really seen the evolution of the philosophy of marketing, at least as great as it could be, where the techniques and the people and the types of talent that are required to execute against those really start to look different, right? What is the agency of the future? What is the brand of the future? Is this in-house or is this not? Is the freelance economy that's supported by the on-demand economy going to get bigger because it's more lucrative or because people are living happier lifestyles? It's not really an answer that we could just discuss here in a few minutes, because I won't lie, I don't know what the answer is. But I will say that all of these things are going to continue to evolve. They're going to evolve because the market is changing. And most of these, whether you're in an industry, an agency, a consultancy, a freelancer, or inside of a brand, you're either going to react to all of these trends or you're going to get in front of it. I will say that it's going to take an entrepreneurial spirit, or maybe if you're inside of a brand or an agency, an entrepreneurial spirit, to really start to buck the system, because the system right now was designed in the mid-20th century. And we're in the 21st century, and we're acting like we're 100 years old, moving through molasses. And even though we get tools, we sort of validate it and think that we're moving faster than we really are. When you compete for the moment, you're forever behind. You're forever reacting. But as an intrapreneur and entrepreneur, these are the skill sets that I don't know that you can teach in school, but you can definitely teach as a matter of survival in terms of being in an era of digital Darwinism. You have to want to be great. You have to want to be different. You have to accept that what is today is not good enough, and you have to be willing to fight against a system that always fights back. That's true for anything, not just marketing, by the way. I mean, this is great times of evolution and revolution. And if it's one thing that I could leave you with, it's to not get mired in the technology or in the processes or the things that languish us in legacy. It's to think about how you would define your own legacy for your brand or your company or your product or your startup, but mostly for your legacy as an individual. How are people going to remember what you contributed to this great time of evolution and revolution? And go make it happen, because people are looking for idols and people to be inspired by, because they don't have the answers. It reminds me, the entrepreneurial and the entrepreneurial spirit reminds me of that famous Apple commercial that said, those crazy enough to try to change the world are the ones that usually do. And this is that moment. And this moment is not going to end anytime soon. So we need our champions, and we also need people to believe that the work that they're doing, the questions that they're asking, doesn't make them a rebel. It makes them a revolutionary in the best possible way.